There are so many teachings who are talking about the same thing. They're talking about the light, they're talking about the God, they're talking about the one, unity, universe. There's so many words to it. I'm going to use different words from different teachings, yet they would describe the same thing. So, as you can see, this knowing that everything what it is one unbreakable network or one unbreakable vibration. This is what even was proved by the science, right? I think that quantum physics just proved that everything is the frequency, right? Within this space, within the universe. And this response of that light coming back and forth, of that energy coming back, is unbreakable. So this constant moving of the energy happens in our universe. I'm just going to bring one word, which I hope will make more understand actually what the Kundalini Shakti is representing. Kundalini Shakti representing the happening or the manifestation of pure consciousness within you, within each and every living being. So the pure consciousness is self-aware, wholeness as such, which is constantly changing, just because it has this potential to change and to manifest itself in such many forms. So that potential of pure consciousness to manifest itself is called Shakti, or its own power of manifestation. So for instance, if you will take 3D printer, right, and you have that, it's not ink, how is that called? The plastic, right, this plastic thread, which actually eventually prints out those forms. So the Shakti itself is that thread or is that material out of which everything will be printed out. And it can have as many forms as it can. It can be manifested in so many different ways, from very, very subtle ones to very, very dense ones. So we have this word which is called manifestation. What does it mean, manifestation? So that means that the Shakti, this potential, can appear in any form. You probably heard, especially in the Western teaching, in the Catholic teaching, that God can take any forms. So basically we can say that this is where we found this connection, that the God is the Shakti. Why is it so? And what God is the creator? Because the Shakti can create all those aspects from itself. So the Shakti, that potential to create, gives all the life and all the forms. Yet the base of the Shakti is this pure consciousness. And that pure consciousness, aside from the Shakti, has another aspect. And that aspect is pure being, or the observer, or the pure being, right? And that aspect, usually in the Hindu tradition, is known as Shiva, right? So this is the space where this manifestation of Shakti is taking place. So Shakti is not some specific female energy, which usually has been referred to. However, Shakti then later on is one of the forms of manifestation too. But Shakti itself is the potential. So is this ink out of which all those letters can come out. Sometimes you may hear the word Parashakti, or the upper Shakti, or the main, the Shakti, or the Mahashakti. This is what we are talking about. This is the core, this is the essence, this is the DNA of all creation. So that means that each and every form, each and every manifestation, being the sound, being other worlds, being angels, demons, anything, everything what has any kind of form. And again, that form is not necessarily be physical. It can be a sound and can be an angel, a demon, it can be a saint, it can be a chair. Everything contains the Shakti itself, within itself, because that's in its DNA. So that means that what actually is not burning in you yet, but has the potential to burn, is the Shakti herself, which has manifested within you as you. Again, so this thing called 3D printer printed out you, but you are containing the Shakti within itself, within yourself. So Kundalini Shakti means kundal, right? The word Kundalini means the serpent-like or creating ringlets. So that means this is this energy, this Shakti energy, what created specifically you. It's your individual Shakti. That's why we have two names. Usually when we talk about Shakti, we're referring to this potential, to this DNA thing, right? And where we're talking about the Kundalini Shakti, we're talking to the specific individual Shakti who has created you. Okay? So your divine DNA, this is what the Kundalini Shakti is. So when we're talking about the awakening of the consciousness, we're talking about awakening of your own consciousness, which is divine consciousness at the same time. So that's why when you hear that there's always the God part of God in you, within you, there must be the truth. The things I listed now, the ways to have the Kundalini awakened, as you can see, there was nothing, no intervention of the energy coming from elsewhere, right? Especially from the human being. Because no one is giving no one else's energy. It's just the same source energy. It's coming to the source which is manifested within you. Because if I would give you my energy, I'm not sure if I'll be still sitting here after 70 years. Okay, so let's summarize. I really like that word, I'm going to use it. Shakti is everything what it is. That means any manifestation or any form, anything what has any kind of form. Be it the energy, be it the thing, be it the dance, being the human being, being the spaceship, everything is Shakti because it stemmed out of the Shakti. Being that even your thought and your negative emotions, everything is Shakti, or that divine power, in other words, or divine mother. Why divine mother? Well, that's another metaphor, because everything stemmed out of her. In other words, she gave birth to everything what it is. So in other words, you can find and trace down and track down this divine DNA in everything. Another aspect where the Shakti is manifesting from or in is the Shiva, is a pure being, or the space of the pure being. Because without Shakti, pure being would be just being, without any form. So both of those aspects, Shakti and Shiva, divine power and divine being, is what the pure consciousness is. So those two aspects, just like you have both hands, like you have your feet, your legs, this is what Shiva and Shakti is within the pure consciousness. The pure consciousness has many names to it. Right? Pure consciousness can be Atman, maybe you've heard that. Pure consciousness can be God. Pure consciousness can be one. This is what you've heard. So what awakening of the Kundalini does, it helps you to remember who you truly are. And you've heard that many times. But to remember, in order to remember, you have to experience that, because your mind, your human mind, cannot grasp it, because that's what is happening beyond the mind. And mind is the same Shakti. So the mind actually cannot look at itself and recognize itself as a Shakti. So that's why the experience is needed for the knowing and remembering who you truly are to happen or to appear. Yet, so this direct experience which we're experiencing comes with the realization, yet the mind, it participates in that realization, but the experience comes first, because mind cannot make this by itself. So what the Shakti Path is the sending out the message from the source, from the universe, from the God, just remember who you are. And this is what actually Shakti Path is nudging, poking that memory. And this is how it's and why it's called awakening, because you are awakening into your own knowing, or you are awakening in your true nature. And yet this awakening is the metaphor, another metaphor. What happens on the energy level? Your energy just gets activated, but this energy is not only energy as such, is your consciousness, because it's divine consciousness, is your knowing, deeper knowing. That's what gets awakened. That's why it's called spiritual journey or spiritual path, because spirituality, it comes to the spirit. It comes to something which is beyond the human being. The path of remembering who you are, because you are the Shakti and you are divine. It's not that you are God, but you are divine. And we have this beautiful example of the Bible, which reads, It says that the God created the human being according to his own image. Shakti Path is a rare and sacred spiritual initiation for the awakening of your own consciousness, known as Kundalini Shakti. Kundalini Shakti itself is the divine consciousness, divine yet dormant power or energy within you. So Shakti Path is the ignition of that exact dormant divine energy residing within you. And it's also the safest way to have it activated. Awaken consciousness, or awaken Kundalini, gradually brings more clarity, more awareness, more stability, and more balance in your daily life. You're welcome to join our meditation retreats, meditation intensives, and meditations online, as well as join our Shakti Path community, which is an international community uniting practitioners from all over the world who are following the path of awakened consciousness.